Hi, my name is Alex Saliga, and this is for my third and final Theorizing the Everyday assignment for my Introduction to Communications Studies course under Professor Aaron Whitty at Towson University for the spring 2024 semester. Um, for my third and final Theorizing the Everyday assignment, I decided to write about ethnography, and I researched it very heavily. And my understanding of ethnography basically boils down to it is a social science, and ethnographers, their goal is to essentially immerse themselves into a social setting, a community, or a culture, and they observe, document, do all sorts of things in order to have a better understanding of the actual culture from the ground up. Um, and for my research, I went and read through two scholarly articles, one of which is titled Feminist Ethnography as Troublemaker in Educational Research Analyzing Barriers of Social Justice. And then the other one is Ethnography as Play by T.L. Taylor, respectively. I will discuss and summarize both of these articles for this assignment, as well as deliver a example of how ethnographic research or ethnography applies in the real world to my own life. So for the first article that I read, I have some notes here with key points that I took that were really important. The authors of this article, they came representing like three different academic generations. It was a whole swath of different authors that came together for this discussion, and basically what their goal was, they wanted to show how feminist ethnography had challenged the prevailing belief in Finland, with their education system, that they live in kind of a classless society, and that discrimination and things like that didn't really exist there. They call it Finnish exceptionalism. And in this article, they did a really good job by critically examining these things. The authors really emphasize the need for a critical and reflexive approach that takes into account all of these complexities and nuances of power relations within the Finnish education system, especially with regard to minorities, people with disabilities, a bunch of people that live, social groups that live on the fringes of society. And it really delivers great insights into the transformative power of feminist ethnography in terms of challenging these things. Ultimately, the authors ended up saying that it was, through their research, it was successful in basically saying that the most invisible, sensitive modes of discrimination that exist within the Finnish exceptionalism, the Finnish education, their research was able to make those things now visible and observable, which is a major thing that comes from ethnographic research. Beyond that, the authors were stating that the biggest challenge for ethnographic research, obviously they want to have some form of tangible impact on the world. It's difficult to do that when you're trying to convince politicians and people that live off of raw data, numbers, empirical evidence, tables, charts. That's their biggest challenge. Beyond that, the second article that I ended up reading, Ethnography as Play by T.L. Taylor, she basically went into depth to explain how online gaming, particularly when you're in servers with multiple people, is very similar to ethnographic research. And she kind of broke her journal, I guess I should say, into 10 different points. First one was beginning play. Then she had discovery and experimentation, analytic puzzling, transgression and transformation, pleasure, embodied and effective, frustration and failure, myth and unknowable, and then finally leaving in conclusion. T.L. Taylor, in this article, she basically states that just like gamers, ethnographers take part in in-depth engagement over time in order to have a better understanding of the actual the culture and the community. And just as in the previous article, there's a lot of nuance that goes into this research when when the author was trying to discover how it relates to play. For instance, several of the points that she had pointed out was ethnographic research obviously involves a degree of work and strain, but it also allows for discovery, broaden horizons, and joy, very similar to gaming. The decision-making process and choosing the game we want to play, it's influenced by a plethora of factors ranging from gender to economic status. Um, and then beyond that, some of the other things that she noticed through her research, ethnographers, just like gamers, they're always discovering, learning specialized language, and they're attentive to the socialization, just like gamers, how you have to fully immerse yourself in that community. And eventually, just like gamers, ethnographers and gamers, they both they get to a point where everything becomes so second nature. They're so in tune with what they're doing. For gamers, it's playing the game. For ethnographers, it's their research. And it ends up becoming second nature. And I always compare that to what I'd read in this book by Robert Cialdini, which is, he's discussing click run, to where we have to think about so many things that oftentimes our brain will seek shortcuts to where it'll see one stimuli and then it'll just run a program in order to take out all the complexities, the critical thought, and the thinking. And that's essentially what you get to with this. And then lastly, T.L. Taylor discusses how eventually you reach a point with the game and the ethnographic research where it kind of just plateaus and falls off, and then you end up just stepping away from it. Sometimes you come back to revisit it, other times you don't. And now, as far as for me, ethnographic research is honestly the most recent time that it's played a role in my life is actually within this past week. I went and applied for a competitor of the company that I work for, Power Home Remodeling Group, called Renewal by Anderson, and I had to go through a 3-step hiring process, which also included shadowing a representative on a sales call. And then I had a previous colleague that had gone to work for them this past winter that I'd sought several advice from, and so I was pretty much doing anything and everything that I possibly could to know all of the ins and outs of the business to make the best and most informed decision for myself possible. And what I came to find through all of that is that my company offers a culture unlike any other. There is a lot of corporate culture out there today, and that is a lot more along the lines of what Anderson kind of has. My company is very supportive and understanding and team-oriented, and through all of that, I came to find that I'm very happy to be where I am. And in summation, the biggest understanding that I've gained through all this research, through reading both of these articles and the research that I've done just in general on ethnographic studies, is the importance of it cannot be overstated. I think it's important in that it challenges preconceived maybe prejudices and beliefs that we have about cultures that we don't know much about. I think that it allows us to gain a much deeper level of context and understanding about differing cultures and communities. But perhaps the biggest benefit of ethnographic research that I discovered through reading both of these articles was the fact that it challenges power structures, and it doesn't really allow for those kind of things to get swept under the rug, or for people that are in power that would benefit from the status quo to say that those things aren't having the influence that they are in reality over the culture and over the community. And I think that is the biggest and most important benefit that I discovered through my research of ethnography.